Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah, and I am joined by Amy O'Connor, who is back as a guest host with us. Amy, thank you for being here for this massive episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Love being on the show, so can't wait to talk about women's football. We've got lots to talk about this week.
We have a lot to talk about. It's kind of throwing it back to World Cup for me. It's 5 a.m. right now. For those listening, I know this is boring, but we had scheduling issues because my power went out because of the storms in California. And that is why Allie is not on right now. But don't fret, because Amy and I, we have a lot to say. All right, so we have a massive weekend of WSL that we're truly going to try to touch on almost everything in it. That is a goal for half of this episode. And the other half, we're going to take you to international. We're going to give you a brief update on the Euros in Switzerland. We're going to talk England. And we, of course, are going to talk the first ever Women's Gold Cup. So let's do it. Over to the WSL. And there's two games that I think we need to focus most of our time on. And that was the Friday and the Saturday game, the two games that had the most implications for the top of the table. We had the top four teams playing each other. Chelsea hosting City and Arsenal hosting United. So let's kick it off with a Friday evening matchup of Chelsea versus City. I have to tell you, this one surprised me. City took down Chelsea at Chelsea 1-0. And it surprised me, I'll say, up until the game happened, because anybody who watched that game, that score comes as no surprise. Would you agree?
Yeah, I don't think it was a huge surprise at all. I think the way City have been playing, I think Chelsea should have got into the game, a little bit more wary of how City were going to come out. We know City are very organised defensively. They've been solid this season, hard to break down. And I think that, Chelsea are getting pulled 4 different ways. They're in 4 different competitions. So something had to give here. And we saw that it was Chelsea that gave and not City. Beating Chelsea at home is a tough task. But it wasn't a total surprise to see this result, to be honest.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, when you look across the entire game, City dominated. And I guess let's start with City, because I think that I'd rather talk about what went well for City than what went poorly for Chelsea. We can touch on that too. But in the last episode, I mentioned City's backline and how organized they are. And I think it all starts from there and their exceptionally talented young keeper, Kiara Keating.
Yeah, the back four and the keeper have been outstanding this season, and Keating is really coming into her own, young goalkeeper. We saw her make one error, like pretty big error, but she seems to have bounced back from that really well. And then the back four of Ruhabi, Greenwood, Alexandri, and Kasparai, outstanding. Just no one in that back line is somebody who would be like, wow, standout, world class. I mean, Alex Greenwood had a great World Cup, but together they're just so organized and they play so well together. And they denied Chelsea, especially Myra Ramirez. She likes to turn and go. Greenwood forced her back. The one time she got past her, debatable if that was a penalty or not. But I thought that the back four are outstanding. And then Keating in the last 20 minutes showed just how much she's come on as a goalkeeper this season and matured and made some crucial saves. So the whole thing with the whole thing with City starts from the front. They press. And when they press together and they go as a unit. And it was evident from the get-go that was what they were going to do. They were pressing high and they picked their moments to press. And that's how they got their goal. They stripped Erin Cuthbert of the ball, who's been Chelsea's player of the season for me so far. And Park stripped her of the ball. Great ball into Bunny Shaw and class finish, as we're used to seeing from Bunny Shaw. So I think that we talk about defensively, yes, they're solid, but the press and the way they press together as a team makes them also solid defensively from that aspect.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Defensive organization starts from the back four, but for City, what it is, and I think what's been the difference between this season and previous seasons, is that they're organized as an 11 across the field. defensively, whether that's in their own attacking third playing defense, whether that's in their own defensive third playing defense. And I shout out Alexandre on the podcast before, but I just think that she has been so underrated this season and so key for them. She went out with what looked like a pretty nasty concussion. No updates on that, but I think you nailed it there. And then we've mentioned that Jess Park has done a great job stepping into that center midfield role that Jill Roord was filling. But I think this was the game that we got to see it actually tested and see her actually tested against Chelsea's midfield. And the combination of her sitting behind a Lauren Hemp and a Khadijah Shaw, it's working so well for City.
Yeah, they're dynamic. They're incisive when they attack. And I think that, we're a fan of Bunny Shaw here at the WSL, but I think there's not enough said about how good she is. And she's a world-class striker, and she needs to be talked about in the Sam Kerr, Alex Morgan, that type of category, because she's that good. And you're always going to have that threat with her, right? It's either going to be, she can finish anyway. She can finish in the air, she can finish on the ground, she can finish from distance, she can finish from close range. So she has all those tools in her arsenal, and that's what makes her and City so good. I mean, the last couple of seasons, she's been really good. And they might win the league, honestly. Yeah. And for me, the worst part of it is that Manchester United could hand them the league on the last day of the season if we get a result against Chelsea, which I could see actually happening because United have been so average this season. But, anything can happen on the last day of the season.
Based on if I were to bet on this season, maybe United's not the team I would say could take down Chelsea, but it could happen. I mean, yes, even statistically with this win, City now sit even on points with Chelsea. Chelsea, actually, you know what? Their goal differential is exactly the same. Chelsea have more goals for, so they're sitting above City, but this is as tight races get. Even on points, even on goal differential, it's pretty wild. And we have to spend a moment here on Chelsea because you mentioned world-class strikers. And I mean, we were texting about how Bunny Shaw, I've been saying for at least a year now, because she didn't get the dues that she got for scoring second most goals in the league last year, just behind Rachel Daly. We were texting about why, whether it's a combination of things. I agree with what we were saying over text. It's a combination of not being on an international squad that gets the same type of recognition as England, as the US, as Germany, as a top 5 team, and of course, race. And I think it's important that we continue to spend time highlighting her. I think it's easy for me to let that fall by the wayside just because I don't think I spend a lot of time talking about City, and thus I don't spend a lot of time talking about Bunny Shaw, but we will now. And let's spend a moment on Chelsea because, we talk about City and how defensively organized they were. And I think we need to talk about how they were able to essentially eliminate Lauren James from this game.
Yeah, Lauren James, we only saw her in maybe a couple of flashes of brilliance. She couldn't get on the ball. She couldn't get on the ball in dangerous areas. And that was basically attributed to how City was so organized. And every time she got near the ball, somebody was pressing her quickly. They weren't letting her drift into dangerous areas to receive the ball either. So, every time she tried to drift in and receive it, she was crowded out by people in the middle of the pitch. And even out wide, when she received the ball, she was shepherded into non-dangerous areas, kept her back to goal. So she wasn't able to turn and become a threat. Obviously, as the game, as City became tired at the end, Chelsea were able to find more dangerous attacking positions. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they created anything of note, Chelsea, to be honest. I could be like, that was such a clear-cut opportunity, except for at the end where they could have scored. And Keating came up with an unreal save to deny point blank twice. So, from a Chelsea perspective, it was pretty disappointing. But this is how Manchester City plays. We've seen this. This is like a trend now because when they come up against the big teams, they're organised and they know what they're going to do and they have a game plan and they have an identity. And they did the same against Arsenal in the FA Cup. It was a pretty boring, drab game, and then City scored and all of a sudden Arsenal had to come out a little bit and try and obviously get an equaliser. But this followed kind of a similar pattern. There wasn't too much going on. City could have doubled their lead.
Bunny Shaw could have had 2, maybe 3 goals in this game.
it wouldn't have flattered them if they'd won it 2-0, 3-0, because I just didn't think that Chelsea looked short of ideas outside of, well, if we can't get Lauren James the ball, or Ramirez is not getting any chances because Ramirez didn't, besides the one that we just talked about, the penalty, which I do believe was a penalty. I don't think Greenwood touched the ball. She did get the player, but it would have been harsh on City to concede that and not win this game. So all in all, for Chelsea, disappointing.
All right. From the number 1 and number 2 teams playing over to Arsenal versus United, the number 3 and number 4 teams playing, arguably United needed these 3 points just to stay in the race for Champions League. They did not end up getting those 3 points. Arsenal took it 3-1. And I have to mention at the top, this was played at the Emirates Stadium. This was the first time Emirates has sold out for a WSL game. And I just think that's so huge. An interesting little stat. Arsenal women currently have a higher average league attendance than 9 Premier League clubs across the year.
That's great. That's great for the game. It's great for women's football. It's great for Arsenal Football Club that they back their women's club so strongly. And they've always backed their women's club so strongly. And that's why they've been so successful. They're the only team in England to have won the Women's Champions League at the time. So other clubs take note. Take note of what Arsenal are doing. Take note of their investment in their women's team and how frequently they let them play at the Emirates. And now we have a record WSL attendance, which is amazing. Not so much for Man United, but amazing for Arsenal to play in front of that crowd. And I guess we'll get on to Man United in a minute, but I think we should talk about Arsenal first.
I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that. This is my moment to just plug again, because I feel like the WSL account continues to try to call it the BWSL. I get that Barclays really wants that, but it's not going to happen. I'll never say it. And I will continue to post on social media for them to stop. All right. Arsenal won 3-1. I think maybe we both agree that this is kind of a flattering scoreline for United, to be totally fair. The fact that they were able to nick 1 goal in the dying minutes of the game. I don't know, maybe you said let's start with Arsenal. Can we just start in the first 5 minutes, though, before we get to Arsenal? Because the first 5 minutes were the only 5 minutes where United dominated. And I have to go back to it because I truly, even as somebody sitting there really wanting Arsenal to win, I thought Nikita Paris was fouled in that opening 5 minutes on essentially one of the first plays of the game by D'Angelo in goal for Arsenal. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, what happened too early? It happened too early in the game for the referee to make such a big decision. I think that again,
that's a cop-out, though.
I'm not saying that it was right. I'm not saying it's the right decision at all. I just think that the referee was like, oh my gosh, 5 minutes into this game, I'm going to have to send a player off because it's denial of a goal scoring opportunity and I'm going to ruin this game. And I'm not prepared for this, and all the thoughts that go through their head. And of course, I mean, it would have totally ruined the game. It would have ruined the game, number one. But as a Man United fan, of course, I would want to see us get an advantage some way, because we clearly needed it. For the first 5 minutes, I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to be too bad. And I was thinking back to last season when we somehow beat you guys 3-2 at the Emirates, but we had a different team then, and some players who we sorely miss.
Namely, Sonia Battier, who we'll come on to.
And Russo scored that game too for us. So, I mean, there's an argument you have Russo up front instead of Nikita Paris in the 9 spot, and it's a different story. But we don't have Russo anymore, and we don't have Battier. So I can't really keep going back to this and crying. But the first 5 minutes were promising for Man United. We were on the offensive. We got some good free kicks and situations, and we're pressing up on high on Arsenal. And D'Angelo's only played, I think, 2 or 3 games this season, and she made a big mistake against United at United for one of our goals at the beginning of the season when we drew 2-2. So I think that the ploy was right to press high, and Arsenal looks shaky. And if there's a sending off there and it's a denial of a goal scoring opportunity, we don't know. Does the contact continue? Probably not. So it's probably just going to be a free kick, not a pen. And maybe that changes the game. But after the first 5 minutes, United would just dour. Dour.
I think that's what we have to focus on now. I mean, that's the whole thing is United started so strong, could have had one, could have had two goals, frankly, in the first 5 minutes. You were sitting there thinking, oh, this isn't that bad. I was sitting there being like, oh, my Lord, it's worse than I expected, because Arsenal's defense has been shaky at best this season and abysmal for the past 2 or 3 games. And truly did seem like it was just going to continue. And frankly, I can't say that Arsenal's defense got all that much better.
I would say that I might disagree with that comment, because
really,
yeah, I mean, I thought Wubben Moy had a great game.
I would agree with that.
We talk about Wubben Moy's inconsistencies, and I thought that last season in the Champions League semi-final, Wubben Moy was playing so well, and then she made that mistake, and it was like, just felt for her heartbreaking, because she was playing really well. And this game, I just was like, well, she's going to make a mistake, because she usually does. But she didn't, and she was outstanding. I thought she was very good for Arsenal, and what she did well is she pressed up on Paris, didn't let Paris turn in dangerous areas, and made it hard for Man United to get anywhere. And they stayed organised. She had Codina next to her. Catley's been a bit shaky recent weeks, but she had a good game. And obviously Katie McCabe is an unreal player.
I can't really give Arsenal's backline that much credit. I thought when they were tested throughout the game as a back four, they didn't hold up all that well. The difference was that Arsenal's midfield and front line, but mainly their midfield, really came through in this game, dominated possession, controlled the pace, the cadence of this entire game. It was so wonderful. I feel like Kim Little was back in form, and it was so wonderful to see her back in form. And Beth Mead, I mean, Mito seemed like Euros 2022 Beth Mead. And that's, I think, what the difference was for Arsenal. It wasn't so much that their back line was organized, it was that their midfield had it pretty much locked down.
I would say that the game was won and lost in the wide areas. I thought that Arsenal's wide players, including their defensive wide players, were superior. And Lacasse she just tore that side apart. Like,
she really did.
Blundell, she had Blundell on skates. It was, and then Mead the same on the other side with Gemma Evans. Gemma Evans had a torrid first half. Torrid. And I'm not going to slate any player too hard, but she did not have a good first half. She could have been sent off. She gave away a penalty. And to me, I mean, the first half was strange. I wouldn't say that Arsenal didn't have a lot of clear-cut opportunities, to be honest. Like, the 3 goals were just 3 weird goals. I mean, besides the penalty, which was a penalty, but they were just strange. The first one was an own goal off of a corner. Yeah. And it just hits Jace and then hits Laetitia and goes in. And it's kind of just laziness, really, isn't it? It's just adjust your body position so that it doesn't... So your angle is not angling it into the goal. Angle your body so if it hits you, it goes out or into
I don't blame Jace or United for the own goal. I didn't think
Really?
Jace had a good game, but we'll come on to Jace and we'll come on to United. But no, sometimes it happens. It seemed like their view was kind of blocked. Sometimes when that happens, the ball comes out of nowhere and you don't have time to react. What I blame United for is that their heads went down. Their heads went completely down after that own goal. And you're right. It was a weird first half. I can't say Arsenal necessarily dominated, but there was nothing for United in the first half on offense. And there was no fire. There was no mentality. It just looked like it was dead in terms of energy. And I really thought that they were going to come out in the second half and change that, and they didn't. So what I really blame United for is they just put their heads down after that. It was great in the first 5. Arsenal scored within at the 10-minute mark, and you could almost see that's when the game completely shifted.
When you're 3-0 down at halftime, it's difficult to come out and be motivated, right? But they're professional and they should. I think the game was over before the second half. So for me, it starts with Skinner's decision-making and his selection of players to start the game. It's showing Man United's lack of defensive qualities. And, we don't have a depth at the back. We don't. We've lost Riviere to injury. We've lost George to injury. We've nobody at left back. who's playing left back? Gemma Evans. Okay, Gemma Evans is a centre back, not a left back. And then if
you're talking about Leah
injured,
Galton, you're talking about Leah Galton at left back. She's not a left back either.
No,
Leah Galton,
we don't have anyone.
She's one of the most creative players that United have, and you want to put her at left back. This is a game that was begging for Leah Galton on that wing, begging for her to play some kind of attacking winger position. And she's stuck on the bench, and then she's stuck at left back because there's no depth, and then there's no creativity coming from Mark Skinner in terms of shifting the style of play, in terms of shifting the formation. We were texting about this. It's very Gareth Taylor vibes, where it's like, okay, instead of playing to the players that I have, I'm going to try to fit these players into this structure that I want them to fit into, but they don't fit.
No, they don't fit. And because of the injuries and the depth, we don't have the depth at the back, then you have to make it work with the players you've got. So if you've got 3 fit centre backs, play a back 3 and then have wing backs. Just do something else. Like I just feel like you just said we lost the game in the middle, right? Man United were not good in the midfield. So shore it up, play 3 centre mids. I can't count the amount of times that Zellum just tried to get on the ball and couldn't. And I thought Zellum, bar the second goal, that wasn't her fault. She tried to clear it. It just hit off Lacasse's head. But
that was the weirdest goal I've ever seen, maybe. The weirdest goal I've ever seen.
It was a very strange goal. Everyone was like, this is the weirdest goal ever. Anyway, but I thought Zellum was our best player on the day. She was the one who was trying to get on the ball, and honestly, are we going to
talk about why Hayley Ladd wasn't in the game? We're going to beat that dead horse again?
I mean, Hayley Ladd should be on the team, but like, I can't count the amount of times that the ball went between Letitia and Turner. It was like they were playing their own game. And it goes Letitia Turner, Earps, Letitia Turner, Earps, out wide to Blundell, and then eventually Blundell just plays it down the line and we lose it. And that's what happened. It went down the line and Jace lost it every single time she got it. And Jace,
if you didn't watch the game, that's a pretty good summary.
Yeah, and it was just uninspiring.
Yeah,
so
really.
I think if you're going to go to the Emirates and you're going to play this formation that you insist on playing with the personnel that you don't have to play the formation well, you're going to get beaten. And you did get beaten. And for me, Paris playing as a sole striker, holding up the play. I mean, me and you differ on this opinion, but I just don't think Nakia Paris is that player. She's been great for us this season, but I don't think she's a hold the ball up, let me bring other people into play. She's a wide player who cuts in and scores goals. And that's where she's been so prolific this year. And this is where we miss Russo, because that's a Russo role. We do have, we have Millard. Can she not do this job? Can Rachel Williams not do this job? It just baffles me, some of the decisions. And I like Garcia, but also did not have a good game. And just change the formation. Try something else. Try a 3-5-2. I mean, be creative. Use the players you've got at your disposal, because we can sit here and nitpick him on his system and his lack of flexibility. But if he changed it and then it didn't go well, we could be like, okay, well, at least he tried something else, and it didn't go well.
At least he tried something else, really. Yeah. Tough game across the board for United. And frankly, it could have been a lot worse than 3-1. But thank you to Mary Earps, because she, at the end of the game, was really the one who was keeping it tight. But with this loss, United are now sitting 7 points behind Arsenal and just 2 points above 5th place Liverpool. Essentially, this is out of reach now for United. Champions League will not be happening for United next season. I think some changes are in store.
Yeah, Champions League gone completely. And that means also attracting players who want to play in Champions League is gone. So I think, but if we didn't already know Mary Epps was 1 foot out the door, she's 2 feet out the door now. She's gone. She wants to play Champions League. Who can blame her? She's the best goalkeeper in the world.
But we can't move on from the WSL without quickly talking about these middle of the table and bottom of the table clashes. It was a whole weekend of, frankly, can't miss games. So we're going to do a quick round robin on the rest of them, because we just have to. So let's talk first Aston Villa with a surprising win for some. I did pick them to win, just to toot my own horn. 2-1 over Tottenham at Tottenham. Amy, what did you make of this game?
Spurs pretty lackluster, uninspiring. The worrying thing for Tottenham is that Bethany England hasn't scored a goal in the WSL this season. I mean, she was out injured. She had surgery on her hip, and she's come back fairly recent. I would say she's been back a couple of months now. It's taken her too long to get her scoring boots back on, and but thank God that Martha Thomas has been scoring goals for them. But obviously, I think that if your captain and your top goal scorer from last season hasn't scored yet, that plays a big factor in their confidence and overall team confidence as well. So yeah, Spurs were pretty lackluster. They're usually really good at playing out of the back, and they just didn't do that well. They didn't find those short passes. Like that's their philosophy is, and they've been caught on that a couple of times by the better teams. But I thought Villa played well. This was one of the rare occasions where we could say Villa played well. And you called this. You said maybe that because Rachel Daly's not in the 11, this will be a different Aston Villa look. And it was. We kind of thought Ebony Salmon was going to start up front, but it was Leon who started up front. And
surprising, but she came up huge. She was creating chances. I mean, she created arguably the goal she scored, she fully created almost on her own. Brilliant by her to just kind of toe poke it. And Vodikova will just be upset that got by her. But toe pokes are hard to defend, harder than everybody thinks. And I mean, Jordan Nobbs, player of the match, I thought deservedly so. And I love to see a player who I consistently think is underrated. I thought Kirsty Hansen had a great game on the wing after she's had a tough season, out on a tough red for the first 3 games of the year, hasn't really gotten rolling ever since. And it was nice to see her having a good game out there. And yeah, this was an Aston Villa that frankly looked more connected than we've seen them look all season, even across the board. I mean, Sarah Mailing at the back, who's been shaky all year, she had a great game. It was nice to see Aston Villa like this. And I agree, like you said, uninspired from Tottenham, frankly.
Yeah, great finish from Nobbs for the goal as well, fading away. Yeah, great finish.
Outside of the right foot, had that nice texture on it. Yep. Gorgeous. Let's take it to Brighton versus Liverpool. Liverpool took this 1-0, a tough loss for Brighton. This leaves Brighton just 5 points ahead of Bristol City and still locked on points with West Ham. Ooh. I thought Liverpool looked really good in this game, to be honest. I think 1-0 is a generous scoreline for Brighton. I thought they got absolutely picked apart and Liverpool looked very strong.
Yeah, I think Liverpool are, like we said, under Matt Beard, they're organised, they don't know their roles, and they've had some really consistent results as of late. They won in the FA Cup, and now they've beaten Brighton at Brighton, which is no mean feat. Man United struggled at Brighton. We barely got a draw.
It's what we call home field advantage, I would say.
I mean, we talked about this on a Patreon that Crawley Town pitch is shocking. There was a lot of rain as well before, so there was question marks of whether this game was going to go ahead or not. But yeah, Liverpool has this nice identity, and they have the goal scorers chipping in from different areas of the pitch. There's nobody really who's you could say Roman Hogg, but I wouldn't say anybody who's clearly their leading goal scorer who you'd look to be like, oh, they're going to get him out of a bind or a jam. And, this one was funny because the winning goal scorer, Holland, she actually scored the goal and then ended up getting sent off, which was strange because it was quite deep into added on time at the end of the game as well. It was a tackle that was, she deserved a yellow card. She has nothing to complain about. It was stupid. And, now she's going to miss either one or up to 3 games, depending on if the FA sees they want to take more action. But I can only see it being a one gamer, to be honest. But yeah, no, I'm a Man United fan. I don't like Liverpool, but I think that there's got to be a lot of credit given to Matt Beard and the job he's done there, because he really loves being at Liverpool, and he won the league at Liverpool. So I think that's his club, and they get him there and they love him there. So we're going to give him some credit. But on the flip side of the managerial situation is that I don't understand why Brighton sacked their manager.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I was going to say. Brighton sacked their manager mid-season. To me, it feels like very much a scapegoat from the top. This is a team that hasn't put in really any effort to building a squad, to bringing in players, to making it an attractive place to be, to play. And they sacked their manager, frankly, as a scapegoat, in my opinion. And now, yeah, they're sinking. They've lost 4 out of their last 5, and there's a massive game coming up next. They're going to Bristol City for their next match, and this will be everything. If Brighton can't win that game, they are completely dragged back into this relegation battle. And it's a tough place to be with a brand new manager mid-season, headed into, frankly, a relegation match in the next weekend of the WSL. And speaking of Bristol City, the final game that I think we need to touch on, Leicester City beat Bristol City 5-2. I've got to say, when I turned this game on, it was a tight one. And then Leicester City just ran away with it. A strong performance from Leicester City. Amy, what did you make of this?
I think we've seen this from Leicester continuously this season. They can score goals. They have that threat going forward, but defensively they're pretty shambolic, to be honest. We look at the cup game last weekend against Birmingham. It was just a very similar game. The scores are very similar also. In overall terms of possession and chances created, Leicester, yes, absolutely deserve to win this game. But if Leicester defensively could get it together, they would be much, much better as a team and much higher up the table. And we saw that against Arsenal earlier this season when they took a 2-goal lead and then totally blew it because they couldn't keep Arsenal out, which, it's hard to do anyway. But I think defensively, if they could get it together there, they'd be a much more solid team and harder to beat. And they'd be more like a Liverpool, let's say, where it's like harder to break you down, but you can also score goals free flowing at the other end, which I'm enjoying about Leicester.
Little by little for Leicester City, because they've come a long way since last season. And I agree. I mean, just statistically, what you just said, Leicester City have more goals for than Liverpool on the season. Liverpool sitting 6 points above them, and Leicester City have scored more than Liverpool. But when you look at the goals against, it's just kind of abysmal. This specific game, Leicester City hosting Bristol City, the stats are just pretty wild. So let's dive into these for a hot minute. 73% of possession for Leicester City, 30 shots, 10 on target. That is an onslaught for Bristol City to handle. And frankly, 30 shots and only 5 goals. Bristol City held up pretty well, I'm not going to lie. But again, we're left with the question here, where are their points going to come from for Bristol City? And the next game against Brighton will truly tell us everything.
I'm going to predict that Bristol are gone. Saying that, I don't think they're going to get out of this.
I don't think you're out on a limb there. I think that's even if they can take the 3 points against Brighton, they're still going to be sitting, fast math, 2 points below Brighton. So then they still need another 3 points on top of that. So really, where do these come from? Yeah, it's looking pretty bleak here for Bristol City. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world.
Go to Spain. Barcelona are back to winning ways after dropping their first points midweek. Real Madrid keep up the pressure with a win over Tenerife. However, third place Levante could only manage a scoreless draw with Eibar.
Over to Australia, it is so tight at the top of the A-League. A draw for Melbourne City means they drop down to second, whereas Western United's win pushes them to first with just 1 point separating them. This season, the competition for playoff places is the toughest it has ever been.
And over to Germany, Wolfsburg fired 9 goals past Nuremberg this weekend to keep the pressure on for the title. Current leaders Bayern Munich also are victorious, allowing them to keep the top spot. Again, with just 1 point separating them, it's one of the closest seasons in the Bundesliga.
And finally, to Scotland, the top of the table clash was marred by Rangers' last-minute decision to cancel all away fan tickets Due to previous problems in the men's game, it was declared to be a safety risk. The game itself was even, with both Celtic and Rangers scoring just the one goal to share points. Glasgow City grabbed all 3 points, which has pulled them leveled with second place Celtic.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football, including the women's game. Want all the stats in one place instead of drowning in a mountain of tabs? Want to explore key matchups and the tactics from both teams? Total Football Analysis provides the stats and analysis to help you learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for just €10. That's €40 of the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
Over to international, and we're going to start with a very brief update. Last week, we talked about what was going on in Switzerland with the upcoming Women's Euros. If you didn't hear that, go have a listen, because we talked about why the funding was being pulled, what's going on there, and there's brief updates here coming out of Switzerland, and that the final will be held in Basel. This is the biggest ground in Switzerland, but the capacity is just 36,000. And when we talk about the growth of the women's game, and we talk about how Arsenal just sold out the Emirates, which the capacity is nearly double 36,000. This is the Women's Euros. The final was held at Wembley. It was a sold-out stadium in Wembley in 2022. What a step down this will be. And it's almost just like putting tampering the growth that could potentially happen. It's really a bummer that the final for the Women's Euros, after an epic final at Wembley, will be held in a 36,000 person stadium.
Well, I mean, before they gave them the Euros, they knew this was the only option, because this is the biggest stadium. So
exactly.
this can't be just like, this is a huge surprise, because it's not. And they made the decision to do this and give this country the Euros. And Switzerland is a small country, and their league in general has small stadia. So I don't think that we can be like, oh, this is outrageous, because it's UEFA's decision to give them the tournament. So it has to be, the outrage has to go to UEFA. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're clear on that. And yes, there's two pieces.
There's two pieces. This outrage, absolutely, at UEFA. I think last week what we talked about, how Switzerland themselves are pulling a lot of the central funding. That outrage can be pointed at Switzerland. But this specifically, yes, this is UEFA, and this is UEFA undervaluing the women's game, plain and simple.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's disgusting. And, you know, we talked about last week about how Switzerland are pulling their funding, which is disgusting from Switzerland's point of view. So both UEFA and Switzerland are really doing their best to take the levels that England took the Euros to and bring them back down, because this stadium it only holds just over a third of what Wembley Stadium holds. Wow. So embarrassing. It really is. And we're on this great train with women's sport where it's like picking up steam, and you want to now stop this by taking us back a level? It's crazy.
That's truly how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, it's the stadium size shouldn't be a surprise, but the decision to hold it in Switzerland should have been questioned.
Staying on international, we've got international break in Europe. We've got a full tournament happening in the Americas in the first ever Women's Gold Cup, which, don't worry, we're about to get onto. So this, for those of you who don't know, because listen, this is the first ever Women's Gold Cup. I think everybody's a little bit like, wait, what's happening right now? There's a tournament going on. What does it mean? Let's just break this down really quickly. There's an international break window that's happening, and that is much shorter than the window that's happening over in CONCACAF in the Americas. The FIFA window will end by the end of the week next week, and that is what all of these European teams are playing in. The Nations League is happening. England are playing in friendlies because they're not in the Nations League anymore. Sorry, Amy. So let's talk England first, and then we'll get onto what's happening with the Gold Cup. So England have two friendlies coming up, playing Austria this Friday, Italy on Tuesday of next week. Team GB was eliminated from the Olympics, so these really are just friendlies. And I think arguably this is a positive for England, because there's been a lot of players coming in, coming out for various reasons. A lot of those reasons are injury related. And I think it's been kind of a revolving door for Sarina Wiegman to have to deal with. I think this is a good moment for England to have a year of friendlies and just kind of sort itself out. We haven't gone to talk about the squad announcement yet. News came out recently that Leah Williamson has been withdrawn due to a hamstring injury and Millie Turner has been called up. Let's quickly spend just like a couple moments on England, the squad, and these upcoming friendlies, because I know you have thoughts, Amy.
Well, thank you for mentioning twice that Team GB didn't qualify for the Olympics.
Was it only twice?
I really appreciate that.
I was trying to hit 3 times.
So, yeah, these friendlies are going to be played in warm weather in Spain. They're not going to be played in England, which has its benefits, right? So they get some warm weather action. They're actually playing in a decent-sized stadium, so they can get a crowd there. Some fans can travel if they want to see these games. If they had them at home in England, they would have got definitely great attendance because these games have been very well attended, even friendlies. England women are just so popular in England right now, which is amazing. So I think that, like you said, this is a good chance for Sarina to really, let these younger players come in and have a chance of playing. We're playing against Austria and Italy. Not taking anything away from both of those teams. Italy just beat Spain recently, so in Spain, so that's not going to be an easy game by any means. And Austria, we know what they provide. They're going to be defensively solid. They're going to sit and try and counter on England. So 2 opportunities for Sarina to see, I would say, give Keating a chance in goal. We know what Mary Epps can do. We know Mary Epps is the first choice, right? Let's give Keating some minutes.
I agree.
I don't want to see Millie Turner out there, but that's just, I'm sick and tired of seeing Man United lose week in, week out with her at the back. But I mean, maybe let's give her a chance and see what she's got going on back there. But I don't think she's going to play her at all. I would think she's just more of a, let's say Jess Carter goes down injured. We've got somebody in there who can replace Jess Carter. I'm gutted for Leah Williamson, to be honest. But this is what happens with ACL returns. You inevitably get something else that just is a niggle or annoyance that comes along with it. You see, a lot of players will wear sort of taping on certain parts of their body after they come back just because they're dealing with something else that goes along with it. And, we'd love to see her back, but there's a time for it, and this is obviously not the one for her. So hopefully she'll get some more minutes for Arsenal and she can slot back into the squad. But
the slow return is the way to go. And I will say, who I really want to see here in these England matches is Clinton. Clinton's been having an epic season for Tottenham, and I think she's played her way in, and I think she deserves it. And with how she's playing right now, I'd like to see how she fits in to this larger picture of the England squad, and if she does.
I think there's an opportunity for her. There's definitely our centre midfield is like we have Walsh and we have Stanway, but I think there's an opportunity in there for someone else to sort of like slide in. I don't think that that's solely going to be the structure that Sarina plays for the whole time, is those 2 in the middle and then a Toon in front or a Kirby in front. It could be a Clinton in front. It could be a Park in front. Park's played really well in the last couple of games. So, and I think because she's a little bit more mobile and dynamic than a Stanway or a Walsh, where she's prepared to get the ball and dribble and change things, kind of similar to what, the qualities that Lauren James brings in, that dynamic aspect of getting the ball at your feet and driving. That could also change the balance of the midfield. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to see what Clinton can provide, what Park can provide. The biggest surprise for me was that Paris wasn't called up. And I think that she's veered away from Paris and sort of closed the door on her, if you will, and her international. I mean,
and seemingly Beth England too, but that's a whole other topic.
Well, I think Beth England, she hasn't scored any goals.
So, we talked about that already, but it seemed that, frankly, even before that, I mean, Beth England had a great year last year. But anyways, I would agree. I think how I would describe what people are saying, Nikita Paris snub. I think snub is maybe a generous word. It was shocking for how Nikita Paris has played this season, but completely unsurprising based on the history of what Sarina seems to be creating in this team. And Nikita Paris just frankly doesn't seem to be a part of that picture.
No, and then the last thing for me would be the Lauren Hemp has been playing outstanding, and the links to Barcelona are obviously warranted with the move that potentially could happen for her. And no one would blame her if she went to Barcelona. So I think she'll just become a better player as well than she already is. But
is that possible? That's scary to imagine.
She's so young, but she's like,
I know.
22
it's
or
scary.
something. Yeah, I think that our main problem for England is we still haven't found anybody who's as good as Ellen White at scoring goals. And Russo not being in the Arsenal team is also a worry. It's like, well, why isn't she starting in the big games for Arsenal? Like, this was a huge game this weekend. Yeah. And then you look at Daly, and she's also had a little bit of a drop off this season in terms of goal scoring. So, and then Beth England isn't scoring. It's just, it's a little bit of a worry for me. And so I want to see how Serena adapts to that and changes it, and to get the best out of the players and the personnel that she has.
And finally, let's talk about the Gold Cup, the Women's Gold Cup, the first of its kind. And this is really exciting stuff. So I think first and foremost, let's do a quick, what is the Gold Cup? Why is this the first year? Just kind of what's going on for those of you who might be like, hey, this just popped up. What's happening? Because listen, there hasn't been a lot of marketing and a lot of press around it. It just kind of started in its first year of the tournament. And then let's talk through where we are in the tournament and some games we're excited for, because I'm like chomping at the bit for some of these games. So the Women's Gold Cup. So for those who are unfamiliar with the Gold Cup, like I said, you are not alone. This is a CONCACAF tournament. We're going to have a couple teams that aren't CONCACAF, and it is played only in the Americas. Up until this year, it's been exclusively for men. 4 years ago in 2020, CONCACAF, FIFA's North America governing body, created this essentially new 4-year calendar that would revamp the World Cup qualification process, and also as a benefit, create more games between nations in the Americas. So mainly in North and Central America, but also, like I said, that's including some South American teams. So we have the CONCACAF Women's Championship. We saw that in 2022. Those were the World Cup qualifiers. And now we have the Women's Gold Cup. There are 12 teams, 8 CONCACAF representatives, and 4 from South America. And we're just going tournament style. The teams are going to be split into 3 groups of 4, and we're playing tournament style football. The final will be on March 10th in San Diego. And where we are right now in this tournament, if you're listening to this on Wednesday when this episode dropped, games for the group stages started yesterday. So we are right at the beginning. We had some prelim games, some play-in games, if you will, to play into the group stages. And now we're off to the races. So I think, Amy, we can talk a couple of the prelim games, because I think there's some notable results and notable teams that we can highlight. And then let's get into the group stage games and just do kind of a brief overview of games you're looking forward to for the group stages, maybe possible upsets or just ones you have circled on your calendar as a must watch.
So the Gold Cup is like it kind of just similar to like the Nations League. They've kind of just like created it to just make this like meaningful competition for all of these nations, which I think is great, because the US really does need better competition in their like friendlies.
Totally.
Say.
And with Colombia, Brazil, I'm glad they're including some of these South America teams. This will raise the level across the board in all of the Americas. So it's good for really everybody.
Yeah, and it does take away kind of like the Mickey Mouse-ness that is associated with the qualifying that you guys go through for the World Cup, because I do think
I don't even know what that means. What is the Mickey Mouse-ness?
Like, it's a joke, right? It's Mickey Mousey. Like, it's just Disney. Like,
okay.
It's like fairy tale for the US. It's like, oh, here you go. Here's some 10-0ers, and then you're through to the World Cup,
I'm not going to lie. It has been nice. But also some would argue probably to our detriment this past year. But we're not going to talk about this past World Cup for the United States.
Yeah, kept that one.
Moving along.
We haven't mentioned that one enough. Only England not making the Olympics. Moving on. Anyway, so yeah, the prelims to this have been really exciting, actually. And it's been good to, I don't think European viewers are able to see these games, because it's been a struggle for us to find these games, but they are on one of the streaming services here. And teams like the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti. These teams have like come into these prelims with the opportunity and knowing that if they qualify, they'll be placed in a group with big teams. And the US, Brazil, Canada being the top teams in each of those groups that are split into three. They won't play each other until the later rounds, but there's still some really fun matchups that are going to take place. I just want to give a big shout out to Puerto Rico because they upset Haiti, and Haiti played England in the World Cup, and we all saw that what Haiti could do. Yeah. And for Puerto Rico, which is, for people who don't know, outside of the US, is considered part of the US territories, and it's a small country that doesn't receive a lot of funding from the US in any way, shape or form, let alone football wise. Yeah. And their team is made up solely of collegiate athletes from the US and some who don't even play in college or play in lower leagues around the world. And actually one of the players who plays on Puerto Rico plays in our Sunday league, which is really amazing, to be honest, to say like I've played against somebody who's playing international football and going to be playing in this Gold Cup. So it's crazy. But
that's just how good we are, Amy.
But that's just how good our Sunday league is. There's international talent everywhere. But yeah, no, actually just the Puerto Rico game was amazing to watch, and just their drive and determination to just hold on to this 1-0 lead for the rest of the game was something. And if we're going to do a player of the week, my player of the week is definitely the Puerto Rico goalkeeper because she was unreal. She made some unreal saves, and she saved the penalty, and she plays in the second division in, I think, like Norway or something. But I thought that Puerto Rico were unbelievable to just hold off Haiti, and you know, they're going to live their dream now. They're going to go play in this major tournament.
Yeah, well, now their prize is that they end up in Group B with Brazil, Colombia, and Panama. Honestly, arguably, this is the group of death, not even Group A. This is a wild group. And let's just come on to it. 3 groups. That's Group B. As I mentioned, Group A, we've got USA, Mexico, Argentina, Dominican Republic. Group C is Canada, Costa Rica, El Salvador, and Paraguay. For me, I'm looking at these games. I'm looking at the groups. There are about 3 games that I'm most excited for. The USA-Mexico game is always a chippy one, a physical one. It's a rivalry. I think very few rivalries do translate from the men's game over to the women's game. And this is one of them, honestly. It's going to be fun. And then let's just stay in Group A for this. Mexico versus Argentina. There's no love lost there either. And then the biggest one that I'm circling is Brazil versus Colombia. I mean, I would have been drooling if this game was happening in the World Cup. Now we get it here. We get Linda Caicedo. We get all of the young Brazil talent. As teams, as individual players that we get to see, that to me, that if that was the final, I would consider going to San Diego just to watch it. I'm so excited for that game.
Yeah, I think Colombia will beat Brazil, actually. I don't know why. I just feel like they will. I think that we saw in the World Cup that they have a lot to offer. A lot.
Big time.
And now they've got a striker in Mayra Ramirez who's playing at Chelsea and all the confidence in the world. And I think that we saw with Brazil, they kind of have flattered to deceive the last, I would say even the last like 10 years, maybe. Like they haven't really done much to be like, wow, Brazil, we should be afraid of them. I don't think Colombia will be afraid of them. Look what they did against England in the quarterfinals of the World Cup. I don't think they're afraid of anybody. So I wouldn't bet against Colombia winning this game. And I think that going back to the US-Mexico game, Mexico has taken a downward trajectory, if anything, in their program. And that's sad to see. And I hope that they can fund their programs better and move their programs forward, kind of like how Colombia is moving their program forward with lack of funding, but they're still doing it and they're managing to eke out the talent and compete on the big stages. And, you know, Canada, where are they going also? What's their direction? We've always said Christine Sinclair. Well, Christine Sinclair's going to retire. Then what? Then what is Canada after that? You know, where are they going?
Now we'll see. I love Bev Priestman, their coach. I absolutely adore. But, you know, they won the Olympics in the last round. I think they were unimpressive, frankly, since then. And for a team that's got the talent that they have, and the coach that they have, I'd like to see more from them. I think that they can do more than they've done. And I mean, speaking of teams that can do more, you mentioned Brazil. What have they done? What they've done is underperform for the last 3 years. They were, in my opinion, one of the most terrifying teams on paper heading into the World Cup. And now, new coach, can that new coach post 2023 World Cup take this plethora of talent that exists, that I think Pia Sundhage, while she might not have been the right coach to take them deep into a World Cup, she was the right coach for the moment because she built a squad and she recruited. And now you've got this plethora of talent. Where can you go from there? Those two teams, I think, can go so much further than what they've done based on the talent they have. So I'm excited to see maybe what could happen. And I mean, wouldn't be upset to see a Brazil-Canada matchup in the semis or something like that. That would be a fun one too. All right. So for those who are wondering, the group stages are going through next Wednesday, February 28th, and then we'll have quarterfinals, semifinals, and of course, a final. And for those European teams that have US or just America's based players, those players will be gone with their national team until this tournament is over. And that is very notable for teams in England, in Europe, in the Champions League. Key players could be gone, but it's all for this amazing tournament. And I believe all of these games will be held, if you're in the US, on CBS or Paramount Plus. So if you're in the US and you want to watch, head on over there. And for the rest of you, we're going to post on social because I didn't do my homework before this to find out where they're streamed outside of the US. That's VPN. My US bias.
Yeah, VPN.
So I'm going to find that out and we're going to post it for you. So head on over to our socials, check that out. And that is it. A monstrous episode for us. And honestly, I think that these next episodes for the next, I don't know, however many months, definitely for how long this Gold Cup tournament goes on, are going to be pretty monstrous because we are going to be covering it all. So tune back in next Wednesday. We're going to have all things international, which, as everybody knows, is always my favorite.
We haven't even started talking about the NWSL transfers yet. So
we have not. And how at this moment, when you are listening, BFC has officially played their first game, which I will be at, and I will report back next week. So for us here at the Women's Soccer Show, I've been Sarah.
I've been Amy.
Thanks, everybody.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.